Andrew Czysz Jr. presents a Carthage College sports media project incorporating its esports program and Rocket League team. Welcome to the Carthage Esports Rocket and Roll Birds podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Rocket and Roll Birds podcast, episode 8, the final episode in this batch. Coming at you from Andrew Czysz Jr., the Carthage lead broadcaster, and we're going to overview Carthage Rocket League Red Spring 2025 NECC season up to this point. Preseason, regular season, playoffs, and even nationals will be covered in this last episode. Over the last 7 episodes, we've taken a look at the history behind Carthage Esports, its offerings with games, different competitive structures, casual structures, recreational structures, the opportunities available for students to pursue, whether that be in competitive play or working for our media teams, and also looking at the Carthage Red players, Alex Vale, Armando Hernandez, and Penn Gilchrist, all 3 of them which have had one-on-one interviews, which you have seen in the previous episodes. This episode will showcase their Spring 2025 NECC season recap. So to begin, we'll look at the preseason. So Carthage Red came off of a fall 2024 Midwest Collegiate Rocket League win versus UW-Platteville, 4-1 in a best-of-7 series. This was for the championship title, so already heading into the season, Carthage has some hardware. This is from a different league. This team had Alex Vale, Penn Gilchrist, and senior Connor Moore, who was then moved over to Carthage Black. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Carthage Red made that roster adjustment by adding in freshman Armando Hernandez. Connor Moore was then placed on the black team alongside Blaze and Flair. And before Carthage Red season opener against Davenport University White, which would be on February 6th, as you see on the graphic posted on here, Penn Gilchrist was asked the following questions. He was asked 4 questions. The first one was, how have off-season practices benefited you in recent months since the conclusion of fall 2024's NECC Division II Rocket League season? Question 2 was, with being on a different team this year, what are your goals for this season? Question 3, what areas have you been working on with both Alex and Armando, and how is the chemistry heading into the season? Question 4, what can the audience expect from Carthage Red entering this contest against Davenport University White? So in answering those 4 questions, Penn's response was, well, considering that for the most of the offseason, we thought we would stick with Connor, I guess it's been kind of hectic. We chose the team with Mondo because of his overall skills and the speed he brings to the team. In recent weeks, we have been working on the overall chemistry and trying to play as fast as we can with minimal mistakes. My goal for this team are to build a solid foundation for next year if we decide to stick, and also become recognized nationally, however that may be. An example would be show matches, top whatever rankings, etc. As I said earlier, we have been working on our chemistry as a team and overall speed and consistency. Our practices have been going very well, and I feel like we step up on game day. I think people can expect this team to be competing to win Division II. My goal is top 6, but if we can figure it out, I think winning will be the ultimate achievement. And heading into this one, as far as NECC goes for the fall 2024 season for Carthage Red, they went 5-2, 21-11 overall, and they made a playoff appearance. They lost to the University of California, Santa Barbara 4-3 in the upper bracket quarterfinals. Keep in mind they had Connor Moore on the team at this time. In the lower bracket first round, they lost to Grand Canyon University 4-0. So Carthage had some playoff experience, and they did well in the regular season, just could not get that far in the playoff bracket. And with preseason out of the way, we can now move on to the regular season. So week 1 versus Davenport White. The storyline heading in was giving the audience a historical perspective of what happened in spring 2024. So the team was freshman Miller Hoaxema, junior Alex Vale, and senior Bryce Nolan. This team went 4-1, winning 67% of their games within a series, and competed for the Champions Division. Red was close to winning that division title. However, they were stonewalled by 5-0 Mizzou Esports in the grand final on April 12th, 2024. Although they lost the division title game, Red made a Nationals appearance, taking down UCSB, but falling short against Robert Morris University. Another storyline was to briefly highlight the new Carthage Red team of Alex Vale, Armando Hernandez, and Penn Gilchrist, a team with veteran leadership and speed. Alex Vale was on the Red team last year. Armando entered his first season, and Penn was elevated from Carthage Black. He teamed with Flair. The final scores for Carthage Red versus Davenport White was 4-2 in favor of Carthage in a great opener on stream. Game 1 was taken by Davenport 2-0. Game 2 was taken by Carthage 2-1. Game 3, Carthage 4-2. Game 4, Davenport 4-0. Game 5, Carthage 4-3 in overtime. And Game 6, Carthage 3-2. And for each of these matches, kind of broke down a little bit of notes to talk about each game, just so the audience can get a sort of a gist of what happened with all of these games. So we'll start with Davenport White versus Carthage. So the Firebirds overcame 50 combined demolitions from Davenport University. And if you don't know what a demolition is in Rocket League, it is simply when one person drives their car into their opponent and you just blow them up. That's as simple as that. So the Firebirds overcame 50 of those. And when you get so many demos like that, it's hard for the other team, or your team specifically, if you're taking in all those demos, to really get back into the net and clear the balls away, because, you know, the opposing team that's demolishing you that many times is going to get so many opportunities at your net and pressure you so many times. Davenport's ultra physical style hurt Carthage, but then Carthage turned a game 1 shutout into taking off angles against Davenport to surge momentum in games 2 and 3. Although Carthage was knocked down by Davenport's physicality and was shut out in game 4, the Firebirds came back and fought hard in game 5. Davenport got too cute defensively, which allowed Carthage to slow the pace enough to score the necessary goals. It led to Penn scoring an overtime goal as Davenport was scrambled on defense. Game 6 came down to who could play logical Rocket League. It ended up being Carthage as they scored a goal to go up 3-2 with 18 seconds left. The Firebirds were able to stop Davenport from tying the game as they blundered on offense. And what I can remember from watching that in the broadcast booth is Davenport was just trying to line something up in the middle of Carthage's net. I think one of their players backflipped and another one just hit the ball above the crossbar of Carthage's net. And then Penn came out of nowhere and really just stopped Davenport from scoring there. And that's what led to Carthage getting a 1-0 start to their season. Storyline exiting the game was Carthage Red showed the audience that their speed was there, but it also showed their composure to slow the tempo and embody the quality versus quantity mindset. Over 50 demolitions were suffered, and the winning series revealed that this Carthage Red team had the durability to keep pushing no matter what was in their face. Penn exited with 17 total demos, while Alex and Armando recorded 11 saves each. Alex scored 6 goals, including 3 in a crucial Game 4 victory. Then we move on to game number 2, and Carthage Red took on Mount Union Purple. The storyline heading in was, after overcoming a tumultuous scenario against Davenport White, Carthage Red looked for a 2-0 start in spring 2025 NECC RL. And Mount Union Purple in the fall 2024 season went 5-2 overall, 20-5 game record. They made an East playoffs appearance. They did not make it far in their bracket. And also, this storyline was highlighting Armando's post-game interview. And Armando commented on the team's approach before Davenport's match, saying that we were staying strong mentally, lifting each other up, keeping comms high, basic stuff, nothing too specific. And Armando's thoughts after the 4-2 victory versus Davenport were, and I quote, "Super strong mentality, nothing can get in our heads besides us. We can't put ourselves down. We pushed through demos, found weaknesses, felt like Davenport, were nervous and made mistakes." And the final note I have for that is, heading into week 2, Carthage aimed to maintain a sharp mentality while keeping communication consistently high. And the final score for week 2, On February 13th, 2025, Carthage won 4-2 against Mount Union Purple. Game 1 was taken by Carthage 5-3. Game 2, 2-1 for Carthage. Game 3, 3-2 for Mount Union. Game 4, 1-0 for Carthage in OT. Game 5, 3-2 Mount Union in overtime. And Game 6, 3-2 for Carthage. So matchup notes for Carthage in Game 1. Firebirds showed that they could clear the ball efficiently and generate offensive firepower. Mount Union fired back to keep the game contested 3-3 to the last 30 seconds. Alex would get a kickoff goal and Penn scored a 0-second goal to make a 5-3 final score. Game 2 saw fewer goals but methodical play styles from both teams. Armando executed a power shot between two MU defenders, while Mount Union air dribbled the ball past Alexander for a 1-1 tie. Carthage would get a 2-1 lead after they bumped Mount Union's goalie and prevented OT. Game 3 was a Carthage 2-1 lead until miscues crept in, allowing Mount Union to come back and win 3-2. Game 4 was a scoreless battle for 5 minutes and 52 seconds until Penn utilized the ceiling to his advantage as he read an awkward touch from Mount Union. He flew up and placed the game-winning goal over two Mount Union defenders. Game 5 was a masterclass. Carthage led 2-0 to begin. For Mount Union capitalized on two of Alex's defensive mistakes. In the first occurrence, Alex hit the ball into a Mount Union player, which stopped its forward momentum, leading to a goal. Later on, Alex lost a jump ball. The game was tied 2-2 in overtime. Mount Union's player Thunder hit a flip reset near the bottom right corner of the Firebirds net to win 3-2. And then in Game 6 between Carthage Red and Mount Union Purple, both teams traded 1-1 and 2-2 scores. With 1 minute and 5 seconds left, the Firebirds identified a defensive weakness. Penn placed a shot near the right post of Mount Union's net as Armando raced to score the series-winning goal for Carthage. Armando scored two crucial goals in the Game 6 that were pivotal in Carthage's win over Mount Union to go 2-0 at that point. The storyline exiting Carthage obtains its 2-0 start after another hard-fought series. Armando exploded with 9 goals, 3 assists, and 7 saves, 24 shots, 8 demos, and a 38% shooting percentage, which was absolutely phenomenal. I remember broadcasting that game, and it was amazing to see him shine. He was only a freshman, so just to see that level of dominance in that series was amazing for sure. We go over to Game 3, which was a revenge match against the Indiana Hoosiers. Coming into Week 3, Carthage had 1 goal revenge. They did not forget about a 4-0 sweep that happened in fall 2024 on September 27, 2024. Alex Vale said in the post-game interview after beating Mount Union that the Firebirds were looking for revenge and that they meant it. Didn't start pretty, though, as Game 1, Indiana overwhelmed Carthage with a relentless attack, and the Firebirds couldn't find the rhythm, losing 4-0. But from there, the Firebirds tightened up. Game 2, a defensive slugfest. Carthage soaked up pressure. Indiana had 8 shots on net, but Alexander's 4 saves kept it scoreless until Penn floated in a brilliant goal to win it 1-0. Game 3, Indiana caught Armando out of position twice to take a 2-1 lead. Even though Armando and Penn tried to rally late, and Indiana would end up winning that Game 3. Game 4, Carthage's defense became a fortress. Armando made 3 critical saves to secure another gritty 1-0 win. Game 5, after letting a 2-0 lead slip, Penn carried the ball down the right side in overtime, and after a wild bounce off the crossbar, Armando crashed in to score the game winner. And in Game 6, a true battle, Indiana tied it late, but a kickoff play from Penn to Mondo gave Carthage a late 3-2 lead. Alexander then slammed the door shut with an insurance goal. Carthage would then win the series 4-2, staying undefeated and getting their long-awaited revenge. Then we go over to Week 4, where the main storyline heading in was Carthage aiming to defend its first place crown in NECC Division II West B Rocket League against Southeastern Oklahoma, a team that was 2-1 that came back from a 3-1 series deficit to beat Indiana Tech the week before. Indiana Tech You'll notice as we get deeper into this that they were one of the best teams in Division 2. And in the Week 4 game against Southeast Oklahoma, after that high, Carthage looked to defend that top spot. However, the series against Southeast Oklahoma was a series of swings, and it went all 7 games. Game 1, Carthage looked in control, leading 3-1 until defensive miscues in the final minute allowed Southeast Oklahoma to tie it and steal the win in overtime. Game 2, Carthage answered, hammering Southeastern Oklahoma 4-1 with clinical passing and beautiful offensive plays. Game 3, Carthage battled back from an 0-2 deficit to force overtime, but Southeast Oklahoma player Game Arcity's clutch play beat them once again. Game 4, Armando and Alexander sparked a comeback, and Armando's heads-up follow sealed a 3-2 win. And in Game 5, it prompted a 0-0 contest of clear rotations and stellar defense. No one scored within the 5-minute period of regulation. A minute and a half into overtime, though, Alexander had the ball and waited for Penn to come across the right side of Southeast Oklahoma's net to hit the grand slam to win 1-0. And that was a series-defining game at that time for sure, as both of those teams were scoreless that whole time. And in Game 6, it began with Southeast Oklahoma going up 2-0, capitalizing on Alexander's late spawn after being demolished and Armando getting faked out in the process. Carthage then found a way to make it 2-1 after Game Arcity mishandled a contested shot from Alexander, leaving an opening in the net. Within 2.5 minutes, Penn and Armando found another Southeast Oklahoma opportunity to score as they caught Southeast Oklahoma before they could race back to their net. 2-2 score after Armando got the goal. With 20 seconds left, Southeast Oklahoma picked up the pace towards Carthage net. Penn would then demolish Crimson Chin while trying to clear a shot. However, Penn missed the ball, allowing Game Arcity to score the game-winning goal. And we would head to game number 7. Southeast Oklahoma had the momentum for the whole game, winning 2-0, thanks to stellar offense and methodical defense against Carthage. Although Carthage fought hard, Southeast Oklahoma had full control and was not taking any chances. So obvious storylines after this one. Carthage suffering their first loss of the spring 2025 NECC RL season. And there were a bit of questions surrounding their defensive mentality with the ball, as sometimes when they get back in their own half, Carthage just has to constantly save over and over and over again. When you're exposed to that situation multiple times, teams are going to take notice of that and really put you in a situation where you can't really have that much breathing room. And, offensively, Carthage, when they get going, but when they don't have enough boost to go up in the air and make those crazy passing plays, their offense is really limited. And it showed in this series, even though they were able to stick with Southeast Oklahoma all 7 games. And that'll bring us to Week 5 versus the University of Houston Red. This was an off-stream game. The storyline heading was Carthage looking to rebound after that narrow 4-3 loss against Southeast Oklahoma. The final score on March 6, 2025, Carthage Red returned to its winning ways by completing a 4-0 sweep of Houston Red in an off-stream best-of-7 series. Carthage winning all 4 of the games in the best-of-7. Some matchup notes: Carthage maintained control of the entire series, not losing a single game. The series was individually highlighted by Armando, who went 5 goals for 10 shots, 1 assist, 7 saves, and 9 demos. Alexander recorded a team-high 13 saves, complemented with Pixler's 6 assists to help the offensive pushes. And Alexander commented after the game, "Our performance has been great. We're in a solid spot going into the last game and the playoffs." Storyline exiting, Carthage maintains team confidence heading into a huge Week 7 showdown against Indiana Tech to decide the first-place team from Division II West B. There we go. To Week 7 versus Indiana Tech. The obvious storyline heading in was Carthage attempting to finish spring 2025 strong with a huge win over Indiana Tech, which could give them, and it would have given them, the number 1 rank in Division II West B, which would be equal to about the 3rd or 4th seed overall in playoffs. Probably higher than that. I think it was the 2nd seed that Indiana Tech got. in the playoffs because they did end up defeating Carthage. And we'll get into those notes. On March 20th, 2025, Indiana Tech shut down Carthage 4-2 to secure a number 1 overall ranking in Division II West B. And that was good for number 2 seed overall in the West playoffs behind St. Edward's Hilltoppers, who are the number 1 seed that played in the West A portion of Division II. And for the game-by-game scores, Game 1 was Carthage 2-1. Game 2, 7-2 for Indiana Tech. Game 3, 5-2 for Indiana Tech. Game 4, 3-1 for Indiana Tech. Game 5, 3-1 for Carthage. Game 6, 3-2 for Indiana Tech. So for Game 1, the scoring opened up with Indiana Tech player Chippy slotting the ball into Carthage's net from center position. Then Armando read an awkward touch from Bluey, another player on Indiana Tech, on defense at the 2-minute and 46-second mark. Both teams were in battle for possession as Carthage nearly scored in the final seconds of regulation. Indiana Tech forced overtime. Alexander would then pinch the ball from his own half, and it bounced into Indiana Tech's net before any defender could get it. It was a 2-1 win for Carthage in Game 1, and it was absolutely insane to see live on stream. I was commentating with my partner, Wolfstrike, and we were just in awe that happened. I mean, Bale making the save from his own net and just like gingerly bounced into the Indiana Tech net because no one was back there. No one was expecting that to happen. So it was kind of a funny thing. Game 2, Indiana Tech Warriors controlled the time of possession well. They won up 5-0 against Carthage around the 1-minute and 5-second mark. Several misses from the Firebirds on defense. However, Carthage would find 2 goals within the 20-second mark to establish momentum heading into Game 3. So although they did not win Game 2, they were able to establish some momentum as Indiana Tech scored 7 goals in that Game 2. It was definitely hard for Carthage to take. Game 3, Indiana Tech led 2-0 against Carthage. Around 3 minutes, Carthage made it 2-1. For the next 2.5 minutes, the Warriors controlled the ball and field, scoring 3 more goals before Carthage scored their second. There were several defensive miscues from the Firebirds and great instinctiveness from Indiana Tech. And again, just Indiana Tech's ability to control the field, control the boost, control where the ball is. And when Carthage gets in these holes, it's really hard for them to recover. And it was one of the themes in their struggles this season. But when they're successful, they're on the ball all the time. It was just a matter of finding that consistency. And in some instances for Carthage, it was just hard to find that given the opponent and the situation. Game 4, Indiana Tech won 3-1. Carthage maintained a 1-1 score until less than a minute remained. The Warriors did a great job of controlling their passes and making Carthage feel uncomfortable on the defensive side. Game 5, Carthage propelled itself back into the series, forcing a Game 6. A 3-1 win spearheaded by 2 Armando goals, one of which came from a heads-up play to throw the ball over 2 Indiana Tech defenders. And Carthage was able to close down the spacing it was giving to Indiana Tech and get better challenges on the ball because Carthage, for the most part in this series, was giving Indiana Tech way too much space to work with. And I remember sitting in the booth with Flair talking to him about, how Carthage needed to close down the space, how they needed to be better with the challenges, just get there to the ball before Indiana Tech could. In Game 6, Carthage went down 3-1 around the 3-minute mark. Then Indiana Tech found great shotting opportunities. They were faster paced on kickoffs and aerial passes as well, which plagued Carthage. Carthage would then make the game 3-2 with 36 seconds to go. Alexander had a chance to tie, but was bumped before he could line up a game-tying shot. And that would be the end of the game as Indiana Tech would win 4-2. And Carthage struggled with stopping Indiana Tech's fast-paced style through kickoff goals, passing plays, and overall physicality. Indiana Tech demolished Carthage 32 times, while Carthage only got 19 team demolitions themselves. Additionally, Indiana Tech controlled the boost economy as they averaged 42.2%, while Carthage averaged 44.8%. Now, in Rocket League, you can get the boost meter all the way up to 100%. So an average of about 47 or so will give you enough to at least get in the air and pass the ball to your teammate or do a solo play, at least from midfield. And the storyline exiting this one was Carthage finishing second in the Division II West B Conference after taking a 6-game series against Indiana Tech and losing it 4-2. They became the number 4 seed Carthage in the Division II West playoffs, and they were prompted to take on number 5 Northern Arizona University. In taking on Northern Arizona University as the number 4 seed, Carthage, the storyline heading in for them was entering the playoffs as the number 4 seed following their loss to Indiana Tech, which was a 4-2 loss. Unfortunately, the Firebirds just weren't able to outmatch the Warriors' physicality and efficiency in the passing and clearing and scoring departments. As far as the matchup against Northern Arizona goes for Carthage on March 27, 2025, Northern Arizona defeated Carthage 4-1 after a close series where the Firebirds had great comeback attempts. Now, in the game of Rocket League, we do play these best of 7s out, and each game is 5 minutes long, and you can make these single games close, even though the final series score might, jump out of the page a little bit. Some of the matches are close. So game 1 was 4-2 Northern Arizona. Game 1 was 4-2 Arizona. Game 2, 3-2 Northern Arizona. Game 3, 2-1 Carthage. Game 4, 5-4 Northern Arizona. And then game 5, 3-1 Northern Arizona. Some matchup notes. Carthage went down 2-0 in the series. Defensive mistakes were committed on the defensive side. However, the team made strides to make the game close. Carthage was pressured on defense, having to save the ball a total of 42 times, twice as many as Northern Arizona had to with 21. About 66 shots on net were forced by Northern Arizona across the entire series, only 37 for Carthage, so a shot disparity as well as a save disparity. Now, the save count being so high for Carthage meant that they needed to save the ball more than Northern Arizona. They were pressured more to just stay, sort of centralized on their side. And in the game of Rocket League, if you want, to score as many points or more than your opponent, you're going to have to find ways to get off of your side. And in that case, Carthage was just not able to do that. And they kept the games close, but they weren't able to pull away with enough of them to win the series, unfortunately. And then you look at the shot count as well. That just goes to show Northern Arizona more aggressive, getting more opportunities with not being pressured as much as Carthage, with 66 shots as opposed to 37 that Carthage got. Northern Arizona also won the boost collected / boost stolen battle across the series. In game 1, Northern Arizona collected 7,749 boost and stole 1,479. Carthage collected a total of 6,830 while stealing 1,173. Game 2, 7,733 boosts collected for Northern Arizona, as well as 1,358 stolen. For Carthage, 6,647 boosts collected and 1,400 for boosts stolen. Game 3, Northern Arizona, 10,772 boosts collected and 3,001 boosts stolen. For Carthage in Game 3, 7,942 boosts stolen of 1,199. Game 4 for Northern Arizona, 13,370 boosts collected to 3,574 boosts stolen. Carthage, 11,275 boosts collected to 2,300 stolen. Then finally, Game 5, 7,274 boosts collected, 2,061 boosts stolen. And for Carthage, 6,370 collected and 1,656 stolen. So, just by listening to those numbers back, you can see and hear that Northern Arizona dominated in the boost collected / boost stolen department. And this is a key statistic as well in the game of Rocket League, because if one team gets more boosts than the other team, they're going to have a chance to do those high aerial like plays that you usually see. If you see a casual clip of Rocket League, for example, you'll see a couple players, going up in the air and trying to hit the ball that way and passing it to each other. Northern Arizona was able to get more boosts than Carthage, so that meant that Northern Arizona had more possessions to make those plays in the air. And Carthage shines when they have, boost in the air and they do all their little motions with passes and solo plays. And when Carthage is hurt and they can get the boost, that really diminishes their offensive ability. You could say this for any other Rocket League team, but specifically for Carthage, they thrive off of that boost. And when they lose that battle, it's hard for them to come back. And this game was just an example of that, unfortunately. So the storyline exiting, Carthage dropped down to the losers bracket following their second straight loss. And they went to face on number 8, University of Houston, which was, ladies and gentlemen, the game of the season for the Carthage Firebirds Red Rocket League team. So storyline heading in between Carthage Red and University of Houston. Carthage begins its lower bracket run in Division II West playoffs after a tough loss to Northern Arizona. Rematch with the University of Houston, whom they beat 4-0 in Week 5 of the regular season, which we talked about earlier. Penn stresses that playoffs are a different vibe and his team should not underestimate Houston. And this series was played, I believe, on April 1st, 2025. And yeah, won all 7 games. Carthage came out on top 4-3. So in Game 1, Houston took it 3-2. Game 2, Carthage took it 8-0. Game 3, Carthage took it 3-0. Game 4, Carthage took it 3-2. Game 5, Houston took it 6-0. Game 6, Houston 2-0. And then in Game 7, Carthage winning 2-1 after a final overtime. So as we get into this, I will show the Game 7 overtime, but we'll talk about the previous 6 games before we talk about Game 7, and I'll throw the clip in there for the almost 3-minute overtime that you have to see. If you're watching this on the YouTube, you got to see this because it was such an amazing moment between, myself, my longtime buddy in crime, Blaze, who I've known since kindergarten. So we had a blast commentating that game. But in Game 1, Carthage was down 2-0, tied the game at 2 with a couple of nice goals from Alex and Penn. Houston held on to win 3-2 after keeping Carthage from scoring after that, though. An inconsistency for Carthage was low boost conservation when advancing the ball into Houston's half for scoring purposes. In Game 2, Carthage dominated with an 8-0 finish against the Cougars. Great rotations, ball placement, offensive cohesion, etc. Alex topped out with 4 goals off 4 shots, 2 goals and 3 assists for Armando, and Penn with 2 goals. Game 3, Carthage keeps Houston scoreless once again, 3-0 final, 2 goals for Vale and 1 for Penn. 3 assists for Mondo. What really worked for Carthage to keep Houston quiet within games 2 and 3 is, just matching their style of play, going up for those challenges earlier, making sure the space is closed off for Houston, not letting them get too much breathing room. It's as simple as that. Game 4, Carthage wins 3-2 after being down 2-0 early. The confidence was not shaken as the Firebirds connected on a few great passing plays. Pixler to Mondo twice, and Mondo to Pixler. 2 saves for Vale, and these passing plays were just out of nowhere. One of the plays, Pixler was just lined up left side of Houston's net, and then Mondo was just right there to read the shots. It was absolutely beautiful to see. Game 5, Houston finally broke out with a 6-0 shutout, minimizing the Firebirds' offense. 3 total shots against Houston for Carthage. And the team of Deads, Polka Dot and Zolfi, were very aggressive. These are the players on Houston, and they were aggressive because they tore apart Carthage. They got more shots in there than Carthage, only having 3, and they were averaging double-digit shots in the other games. So it was kind of interesting to see Houston sort of adjust, and Carthage now needed to counter-adjust. And in Game 6, Houston won 2-0, minimized Carthage's offense once again. Only 5 shots were put up by the Firebirds, and the Cougars adjusted their defense by giving Zolfi a bigger role as he recorded 2 saves, and he also demoed Carthage 3 times, which was big for Carthage's, inconsistent downward trend in this series. But it was headed to Game 7, and, the series was tied up 3 apiece, and this was going to be such a big moment for the Firebirds because their season was on the line and everything like that. So in Game 7, Houston leads 1-0 as Polka Dot. It's a nice challenge within 2 minutes. With 45 seconds to go, Penn lines up on Houston's right wall, selflessly centers the ball to Alex for a game-tying goal. And then afterwards, a 2-minute and 55-minute overtime, which I will now play the clip for everybody to watch. So please take a look at the clip.
Who puts one middle? Dez with an incredible double, but Mondo sits, reads it. Dez, 0 seconds, it's no good. Vale puts one up. Pick's not able to keep it alive. I told you it was going to overtime, and we are here. My voice is almost gone, but I got enough time for a Rocket League overtime. Now Pix controls it, pops one eye, gets it past 2. Polka Dot's gonna go. Vale's got to avoid the demo. This could be a shot. It goes high. Mondo on it. Looks for the pass to Pixlr, who will send it over Polka Dot. Vale looks for the 50. It's gonna go backboard. Dez clears it away. Now, we're looking for a touch from Mondo. It goes high. Maybe jumped a little late, but it's good because Pixlr will be there to read. Vale has the boost to go up, gets it to the backboard. Now Dez looking for any control. You gotta breathe. You have control. No one's jumping. Now one does. Mondo, with the rest of the boost in the tank, gets one. No one's jumping on the side of Houston as Pix clears it away. Zolfi playing, once again, this relief playstyle we saw earlier in the series. Maybe it will work, maybe it won't. The shot, no good. That's 2 on the side of Houston.
Oh, wait, there's somebody
That's
back
2
there.
on the side of Houston.
Okay.
Vale's there. We'll pass it middle. Mondo looks for the pass. We'll have to keep control. What a touch! But it's no good. Zolfi gets it back.
Vale's going to be in position.
Mondo's going to be able to get a touch. Minute elapsed. Vale looks for the clear. It will go right into Dez, who clears it away off his own car. Vale looking for any touch. It won't be good. Wait, it will be right in front of the net, but Dez has been an MVP this overtime. Will he be able to do something here? Sends it to Polka Dot, who sent it to Vale! It's good shot! It's off the side, but they have the pressure. It's up in middle. Mondo sends it middle again. Picks, looks for the shot. Vale has a 1v1 opportunity. It's no good. We'll see one back in net. It's 0 boost. Zolfi takes the shot. It's high. Vale backflips.
Great save.
Polka Dot taking time, trying to change the course of action.
Someone's
one up.
Gotta be there.
Zolfi looking for the double tap. It's slow, but Vale able to get the save.
What is happening right now?
No, Mondo misses. Nobody's got any boost except Vale. It will go 1 to Dez. We'll have the boost to get another, but Pix jumps early. Zolfi now looking for anything. We'll just keep it high. 1 to his teammate. Picks over it. We need to get a clear out. We're starting to get on top of each other. The shot's there. It's going to be high. Mondo has to make the clear, and it will go away for just a little bit as Zolfi looks for the shot. Polka Dot has a little bit of boost. We'll play the 50. We'll be able to get another one. But Pix with a better 50. Mondo calls him off, but they both go, and nobody gets a touch. Vale gives them some space. It's on backboard. The control from Polka Dot is what you expect. You want to change the pace. But Pixlr speeding it up again. It's in front of the net. Vale able to put it to backboard. Mondo is going to look for 2. Gets it past 1. Zolfi is going to be there. It's a pass to Polka Dot. You have to get this clear. Vale does. And now Dez trying to control it as much as it can. It's going to be into the midfield.
Pixlr's in position.
Has to play the waterfall. It's going to be a miss.
Let's go!
It's going to be a miss.
Oh my goodness! And we're alive in the playoffs, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh my gosh. Zolfi not able to make the read. Picks waiting for it.
Oh my
goodness. And now will be a Carthage Firebirds Game 7 overtime win.
Wow. I don't know who we're pulling in for this post-game interview, but it's going to be pure cinema. Wow. Look at these stats. Oh my goodness.
Oh my God. Look at the celebrations. You saw Pix standing.
Dude.
Mondo scratching the head. Can't believe it went that far.
Oh my God.
I gotta say, Pix might have scored that overtime, but it was that Carthage defensive resilience. They just kept clearing the ball away on 0 boost for the longest time.
Wow,
it was such an awkward read for Zolfi, and it just goes in. Wow. What a match.
What a match. We picked the best one to commentate, man.
Oh, my God. You know, I would have preferred the 4-1. I got to say, I would have preferred if we won Game 5. But
hey,
a win's a win.
A win's a win.
A win's a win. I can't complain.
Now that the clip has ended, we'll just briefly talk about that once again. Such a hype moment, I know. So 2-minute and 55 overtime filled with so many nail-biting moments, as you saw. Penn demos Dez on the Carthage half. As soon as the ball gets towards the Carthage half, then Vale takes the ball up to the right side and shoots it for Penn, who's center in the Houston net, and it's in for the win. I mean, that was just amazing. I about jumped out of my chair when that happened. I, looked away from the screen as soon as that happened, and I was like, bang, let's go, because it was such an amazing play for Carthage. I mean, that's the series points, it's season point at that juncture. So it was awesome for Carthage to really rise up to the occasion. And the obvious storyline exiting, Carthage winning 4-3 after defensive resilience in Game 7. One of the best matches in Carthage Esports' spring 2025 season. I have that down in my notes. I would argue it is the best one of the season. And they move on to play Grand Canyon University in the lower bracket quarterfinals, who they lost to in the fall 2024 playoffs. A bit of a grudge match for them. And that is the last playoff game that I have in my notes here before we move on to nationals. So lower bracket, as number 4 seed versus number 3 Grand Canyon University. Storyline heading in, Carthage looks to keep its Cinderella playoff run alive. Alexander states the series against a beatable opponent is upcoming. We have been playing solid and consistently passing the ball around. Those are his words from the post-game interview from the University of Houston Red game. It was a brief one as he had another game to play in a different league, as well as his teammates Penn and Armando. On April 3rd, 2025, Carthage took on Grand Canyon University in the spring 2025 NECC Division II playoffs lower bracket quarterfinal. Grand Canyon University ended Carthage's run with a 4-2 win, and it eliminated us from playoff contention. Game 1 was taken by Carthage 3-1. Game 2 was taken by GCU 4-0. Game 3 taken by Carthage 2-1. Game 4 taken by GCU 2-1. And Game 5 taken by GCU 4-3. GCU would then take Game 6 3-0. Matchup notes for game number 1. Carthage puts up 3 goals on 8 shots. Ball possession was even. Carthage had 149 touches to GCU's 141. Boost stealing numbers were about even, roughly 2,000 boosts stolen for each team, and Carthage was efficient in the shooting department. That's why they opened up the series so well. Game 2, Grand Canyon University put up twice as many shots as Carthage, 12, and Carthage had 6. Although Carthage had more ball touches, 154-128. Grand Canyon stole more boost, 2,006 to Carthage's 1,672. Grand Canyon University also had 5 demolitions to Carthage's single demo. So it definitely changed the pace up for Grand Canyon University. They were more aggressive, and that ultimately worked against Carthage. Game 3, Carthage matched the output of Grand Canyon University's defensive and offensive numbers, scored 1 more goal, collected a big boost, and those numbers were 6,894 to 6,675 for the stolen boost between each team. Or I think total boost consumption. And then big pads, which are the boost panels on the corners and the sides of each Rocket League map that give the player a full tank of boost. And Carthage had 58 to Grand Canyon University's 56. Possession was 141-144, so GCU kind of had more ball touches, but not by much. When the Firebirds can match their opponent's output, they become comfortable and open up scoring possibilities. So what I've been saying throughout this entire podcast episode is when Carthage gets in that groove, when they can match their opponent's output and become comfortable, things open up for them. In Game 4, Grand Canyon University led all major categories, including goals 2-1, shots 9-5, possession 164-158, boost per minute 1,351 to Carthage's 1,190, boost collected 8,239 to Carthage's 7,201, boost stolen 2,166 to Carthage's 1,889. Big pads collected was 70, and GCU player Froppy recorded all 3 saves for Grand Canyon University in this Game 4. Mondo had 4 for Carthage on the only assist to Penn's goal. In Game 5, Grand Canyon University pulled back the curtain on Carthage, winning 4-3, fueled by a 2-goal performance from Froppy. Another close game between these two teams. However, Grand Canyon found more opportunities on the net, 9 shots to Carthage's 7, twice as many demos, 6 to 3, and more boosts stolen, 2,117 to Carthage's 1,966. Lastly, for Game 6, Grand Canyon closed out Carthage 3-0 in a series where the Firebirds only put up 6 shots to GCU's 10. GCU had more possession with 165 to 125. Demos 16 to 2. Boost stolen 1,781 to 1,250. And big pads collected with 58 to 55. So, although Carthage had a great fight in this series, GCU just led in those categories such as, goals, shots, boost collected, boost stolen, big pads collected. All those categories were predominantly owned from GCU. And that's what ultimately got them the win. And for Carthage, this was another tough one to take on the chin, but they gave it their best efforts, and that's all they can really take in at that moment. The losses suck. We all know losing is not the number one thing that we want to do, but when we take a loss, it's a chance to learn. It's a chance to grow as a team, and this team takes it on the chin. No complaints. They just go back into the lab and work things out. Storyline exiting the game for Carthage Red. They're eliminated from the NECC Division II West playoffs. The team waits to see if they qualify for nationals based on fall 2024 and spring 2025 performances. And spoiler alert, they did qualify for nationals, and we'll get into talking about their upper bracket quarterfinal game versus number 1 at Southeast Oklahoma. We'll get into talking about the Nationals performance for the Firebirds as they took on number 1 Southeast Oklahoma in the upper bracket quarterfinals. So the storyline heading in was, although Carthage was eliminated from the Division II West playoffs, the Firebirds earned enough points to clinch the 8th spot in the Division II Nationals. This was headlined by 5-2 overall finishes in both the fall 2024 and spring 2025 seasons, which resulted in 2 playoff appearances and 1 playoff win against Houston Red, which we just talked about in spring 2025, which was a lower bracket first round matchup that went all 7 games. Southeast Oklahoma enters as the number 1 seed in Division II Nationals because of a West Championship win as the number 6 seed versus number 5 Northern Arizona University. And Southeast Oklahoma went on such an unprecedented run in the lower bracket of the Division II West playoffs. They beat teams such as Grand Canyon University, who knocked them out in the upper bracket in the first place. They beat teams such as Indiana Tech and St. Edward's Hilltoppers, who were the number 1 seed overall in the West playoffs. So that was pretty impressive for them. The final score between number 8 Carthage and number 1 Southeast Oklahoma on April 24th, 2025. Southeast Oklahoma wins 4-1 over Carthage. And again, this was sort of an encore moment for Southeast Oklahoma after getting their championship win against Northern Arizona University on April 10th, 2025, which they won that best of 7 series 4-1 as well. Game by game for Carthage and Southeast Oklahoma. So game 1 and game 2 were both taken by Southeast Oklahoma. The Savage Storm scored 5 goals in each of those 2 games. Carthage only put 1 goal up on game 1 and 2 on game 2. Game 3, Carthage won 3-2. Game 4, Southeast Oklahoma wins 2-0, and they do so once again in game 5, winning 2-0. Some matchup notes across the series. Southeast Oklahoma had more total goals, 14-6, assists 13-5, shots 46-20, and demos 23-17. And when you lose that shots put on net count, it really hurts for Carthage, and Southeast Oklahoma was just able to get to the ball a lot more in this series. For game 1, Southeast Oklahoma started out swinging, with Crimson Chin lighting up the scoreboard with 3 goals on 7 shots. Game RC assisted his teammate with 3 assists. The fast-paced start came after an NECC Division II West Championship again that we mentioned before. Game 2, Southeast Oklahoma took it 5-2 after neutralizing Carthage's offense once more. Southeast Oklahoma has a tendency of building up a lead and holding onto it by means of keeping their opponent trapped on their own half, just trying to make them clear the ball over and over again, which wastes a lot of time. Crimson Chin posted 2 goals and 2 assists, helping to elevate the team. Game 3, Carthage would win their first of the series, 3-2 victory after being down 2-0 in the series. Once again, when the Firebirds can match their output of their opponent, they're able to have much more breathing room offensively. Alexander, Armando, and Penn all scored 1 goal each. Penn recorded 4 saves, and Armando had 3. Game 4, Southeast Oklahoma took it 2-0 over Carthage. Southeast Oklahoma had 12 shots to only 2 from Carthage, so that is why Southeast Oklahoma was able to get that Game 4 win. Game 5, Southeast Oklahoma would wrap it up with another 2-0 shutout victory, and again, they were just kept Carthage on their own half, and when you're a team like Southeast Oklahoma, it's expected of them to do something like that, and that's what they did. They capitalized on Carthage's mistakes on the defensive side and really neutralized their offense because of it. So the storyline exiting the game is Carthage drops to the losers' first round in Division II Nationals. However, Durham Esports, the team that we were supposed to play in the losers' first round, forfeited their entire run in Nationals, so it gave Carthage a bye into the losers' bracket quarterfinal, which would be played against number 2 Daytona State Esports on May 1st. I'm currently recording this on May 3rd, so we can talk about those statistics and other little storylines that occurred from that one. So storyline heading in, Carthage Red looks to improve their energy and pacing for a win-or-go-home national series against Daytona State. Daytona State had won Division II East before Nationals, and they enter after a 4-2 loss against Indiana Tech Warriors in the upper bracket semis for Nationals. And Daytona State also had a similar lower bracket run to that of Southeast Oklahoma, where they lost to University of Central Florida in the first round of the Division II East playoffs, but they made a lower bracket run, beat a bunch of great teams, and then went on to play against University of Florida once again, and they beat them 4-1 to win the championship. So that was awesome. Final score between Daytona State and Carthage, a 4-3 Daytona State win. So in game 1, Carthage won 3-0. And from watching them, myself and co-caster Wolfstrike immediately noticed that this team looked faster and cohesive on offense, not just, giving the ball away to their opponent as much as they've done, recently on the defensive side. There's been struggles with that. There's been struggles with developing passing plays as well. But the series started with 3 goals for Pixlr and 3 assists from Vale. Game 2 was a 1-0 Daytona State win after a 2-minute and 6 overtime. So game 2 was a slugfest 5-minute period with no goal, 6 saves on net for Carthage. And in the 2-minute and 6-second overtime, the Firebirds lost as Daytona State player Sulace delivered a pass from midfield to teammate Ian, who surged up the left side of Carthage's net and banged in the game-winning goal. Games 3 and 4 were both very competitive games, 2-1 finishes, but unfortunately for Carthage, Daytona State escaped with both of those valuable wins. As in Game 3, Carthage had a chance to tie it 2-2 with about 3 seconds left. Pixlr had it centered for Mondo to come up and score, but Mondo was just a tad late, and the ball ended up dropping to the ground before it could reach into the net. And Game 4, Vale was in a similar situation. However, he did get the ball in the net. However, it just popped out ever so slightly, and it resulted in Daytona State shooting the rest of the clock up in Game 4. Now we go over to Game 5, where Carthage took a 4-1 lead early on. The offense was stellar, but they allowed Daytona to make the score 4-3 late on defense until Vale touched the ball down as regulation expired. And in this game, Vale and Pixlr had 2 goals. Then we get to Game 6, where Carthage faced a 3-2 deficit around the 2-minute and 40-second mark. Mondo aligned his car with the ball and pinched off the right post of Daytona's net, leading Vale to score the game-tying goal. And then in overtime, the Firebirds would find a way to get the goal to extend this to a Game 7. And in Game 7, Carthage was halted by Daytona as they lost 2-0. And why was Carthage halted? It's the biggest disparity was that Carthage lost the boost stolen battle, and when you steal boost from the opponent, they cannot go up in the air and do their usual maneuvers that they would usually do, because these Rocket League players are so mechanically gifted. Most of them just thrive off of going in the air, creating stuff with passes and stuff like that, even solo plays too. So losing the boost stolen battle is definitely a big contributor of why Carthage lost this Game 7. So Daytona had 2,379 boosts stolen, and the Firebirds had 1,222. So That's a big gap. But even though Carthage's season ended with a 4-3 loss against Daytona State this past Thursday, we could talk about how Carthage's spring 2025 season ended with 2 top 4 placements in Division II conference play, 2 playoff appearances, a playoff win, and a Nationals appearance as the 8th seed. Phenomenal season with a team of guys who love to play Rocket League and a team that established synergy throughout the season. Through the ups and the downs, this team stuck through and did a great job in Division II, and I can't say that more myself as the lead broadcaster for this team. This has been a tremendous team to watch. You know, even though they didn't win the whole thing, that doesn't really matter to me. What matters to me is that these guys, you know, they form a great trio, and you know, they just have fun with it. You know, like, you know, these teams kind of get caught up in, you know, the competition aspect a little bit too much. I mean, you know, that's what you're playing for. You're playing for a championship, but you know, in an instance like this, you know, just having fun. And you know, these guys are in multiple leagues as well. They're in the Midwest Collegiate Rocket League. They're in the Wisconsin Collegiate Rocket League. They're everywhere else too. Like, you know, they've won championships elsewhere, so they do have a championship pedigree. It's just not in the NECC, and that's okay. That's okay, because you know, you can't win in every league, but you can try your best, and that's exactly what this team does every single time they step into the esports arena, every time they play with each other. So I am happy for what I got with this team this year, and also they were willing to help me out with this podcast too, which is also special. So we'll end this by talking about final statistics. I'll put some on the on-screen graphic here. So for combined statistics in regular season, postseason, and nationals action, Alex Vale had the most goals with 55. He had 30 assists, 183 shots, 114 saves, 69 demos, and 30% shooting percentage. Penn Gilchrist, 39 goals, 42 assists, 147 shots, 107 saves, 110 demos, 26.5% shooting. Armando Hernandez, in his freshman year, 38 goals, 41 assists, 127 shots, 116 saves, 77 demos, and 30% shooting. So Alex Vale having the most goals and the most shots on the team makes sense. He's the primary shooter for the team. 114 saves as well. Also great. Armando topping out with 116, though, is amazing. And, you know, 38 goals in your freshman year is pretty good. Pretty good. Regular season now, I'll throw those stats up. Armando Hernandez, 29 goals, 17 assists, 79 shots, 59 saves, 50 demos, 36.7% shooting. And against Mount Union Purple, he had 9 goals in that game. So he popped off in that one, and he also popped off through the regular season as well. He's just a great player to watch. Like, there were several instances where Pixar and Vale were just trying to set something up, and then Mondo would just come in and play cleanup crew as that third man and just make sure the ball goes in the net for Carthage. Alex Vale, 27 goals, 19 assists, 120 shots, 67 saves, 35 demos, and 22.5 shooting percentage. Penn Gilchrist, 19 goals, 29 assists, 82 shots, 57 saves, 70 demos, 23% shooting. So yeah, Penn Gilchrist has always been the main demolisher when it comes to being on a Rocket League team. And back to his Waukesha South days when I can remember, he was the physical brute on that team, and you know, he was able to win back-to-back Wisconsin High School Esports Association titles in Wasilla. So that was awesome for him. And Vale topping out with 120 shots again, just being that main provider, that shot creator for the Firebirds, which is very valuable. And then finally, postseason and national stats. Alex Vale, 28 goals, 11 assists, 100 shots, 47 saves, 34 demos, 28% shooting. Penn Gilchrist, 20 goals, 13 assists, 65 shots, 50 saves, 40 demos, 30.7% shooting. Armando took a seat back on the goal count with 9 goals, 24 assists, 48 shots, 57 saves, 27 demos, 18.7% shooting. Now, although Armando had a low goal count, he was effective when needed. You know, he had the most saves on the team with 57, most assists as well. So he was still doing stuff for the team, just not in the goal department as we saw in the regular season. So that's kind of an interesting little caveat there. But nonetheless, so there are your stats for the spring 2025 Carthage RL Red team, and that'll bring us to the conclusion of episode 8 of the Rocket and Rollbirds podcast. And again, this is for a sports media project. I wanted to, highlight our Rocket League teams and highlight our esports program because we never really did a podcast before. So to be able to pioneer something like this is very special to me. And to have a special team of Rocket League players to help me with this was tremendous as well. So I hope everybody enjoys listening to all the episodes of this podcast, and hopefully we can start something else up for Carthage Esports in the future. And I have been Andrew Czysz Jr. Pleased to be developing this podcast, and it'll be released soon, as this is not only for a sports media project, but just for the Carthage faithful in general to watch it and enjoy it and get something new out of the YouTube content that we have. We usually just upload the VODs for our live streams, but I just wanted a little bit of a break from that, give you guys something new, and it works for a sports media project, so this is awesome. My Professor John, I hope you enjoy listening to all 8 episodes of this. And hopefully I did a good enough job for you. So, yep. I have been Andrew Czysz Jr. Thank you all for watching all 8 episodes of the Rocket and Rollbirds podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to Rocket and Rollbirds.